We talk about the failed Christopher Morel experiment, or is it a failure? Next.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Alongside Sam Olber, I'm Matt Cozy. Sam and I are lifelong fans, taking our passion into a discussion with you on all things Cubs. Thank you for being part of the show and making Locked On Cubs your first listen today. And the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day, like the video, and comment anything below, even during All-Star Week. Today's episode is presented by our great partners at Booking.com. Booking.yeah, the right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. And as we record, we're inside 2 hours from the Home Run Derby, about 24 plus hours from the All-Star Game. Sam, it's quite a time of year in baseball with these two great events. So many great memories with these events.
No, I wanted to say this really briefly before we get into our show. I am so fed up about what they've done to the Home Run Derby. You look at the old footage of 0-2 Sosa at Miller Park, the anticipation of every pitch. Will he take it? Will he swing at it? How far will it go? And then he hits a 520-foot home run, and we get to admire it and enjoy it. And the crowd gets to have a standing ovation. That's what baseball is about. Baseball isn't about a time limit. And what they've done to this Derby, they've made it a stamina contest, a timing contest. We can't even enjoy how far a ball goes because the minute you see it, the next pitch is coming. That's not baseball. Baseball shouldn't be played like that. And right. I don't like that they did it. If Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani and those guys can't do a 10-out format, then do a different event. Let's get into the program.
The camera can't even keep up with it.
It's exactly what I did. Like why I love baseball. That's the opposite. Now let's talk about Christopher Morel.
Well, as we sit here at the All-Star break, Sam, we have an opportunity to evaluate individual seasons so far. The one we want to perhaps most of all eval is Christopher Morel, who has logged time at both third base and designated hitter for the Cubs in 2024. Morel is slashing 202, 303, 387 with 18 home runs and 50 runs batted in 96 games. At third base, Morel ranks last in all of baseball with a -8 defensive runs saved. Sam, it's time to talk about Morel, I do believe.
Yeah, and I tweeted out on Saturday about the failed experiment, and then he hits his 2 home runs on Sunday, so everyone aggregates it and makes fun of me and but look, the Morel thing. Here's the thing with the Cubs. Okay, the Cubs had this idea. I call it like the 2 timeline strategy, where they wanted to compete and win now, and they also wanted to develop young talent at the same time, and that is possible to do. But in order to do that, you have to have guys that have superstar-like production, right? Gavin Lux, right, for example, has really struggled this year with the Dodgers. But, and Betts is hurt, whatever. But, when you have Ohtani in there and Freeman in there, you could overcome those type of things. The Cubs weren't top-heavy enough. They weren't talented enough to be able to make up for lack of a better term, black holes in their lineup and guys that can't defend. And Christopher Morel has just been a really good example of that. Early in the season, the trends were good. The numbers were bad. The trends were good. He was walking more. He was whiffing less. I never thought he would fit at third base, so I don't even think there's a point in even talking about that. It just isn't. It isn't there, and the Cubs have, albeit too late, have adjusted to that. But now the trends aren't as good. The strikeouts are back up. The hard hit rate's good, but Morel just seems like one of those guys where he's just going to, he's there to hit home runs. He's there to hit the ball hard. He's never going to be a really good clutch hitter because he doesn't go the opposite way. And I'm not giving up on him whatsoever. And the Cubs now have to be more bought into him than ever because you don't want to trade somebody that doesn't have the value that they should. And I think the goal for somebody like Christopher Morel is to be an explosive bat. I look at a guy like Adolis Garcia on the Rangers, or, somebody like, that could hit 35 to 40 home runs, get the batting average up to at least like 230, have that OPS sitting in the low to mid 8s. But right now with Christopher Morel, and I said this yesterday, it reminds me a lot of Justin Fields in this sense. The flashes are there. The flashes jump off the screen. The intangibles, the arm strength, the power. He looks like he could be a stud, but the production's not. The day-to-day production hasn't been there. And it's different than somebody like PCA because PCA is 21 years old. Christopher Morel's 25. It's different. It's a different timeline. And like the great Louis Riddick, who works for ESPN as a football analyst, said regarding Justin Fields, flashes can get you fired because you fall in love with those flashes, but at some point there needs to be production behind it. I'm not giving up on Christopher Morel, but it's just been really disappointing, and I think he's really hurt the Cubs so far this season.
Wow. Well, I really like that comp and even the Louis Riddick quote to back that up as well, because I think about Morel as someone that the Cubs really invested in this year from day one. And I am going to talk a little bit about him at third because it really has mattered, and it has mattered in a negative way. I was pretty hot over the weekend about this guy. I even floated out at one time to you about demoting him to begin the second half of the season this Friday. And while I have examples of Kyle Schwarber in 2017 and Ian Happ in 2019, you're right about the timeline. Because for Happ in 19, it was to begin the year. For Schwarber in 17, it was like a month into the year. And right now we're 98 games in. So I'm not really sure what sending him to Des Moines would do. My biggest frustration with Morel is that he is not making adjustments at the plate. He's not. And I don't know, and it's not my job to know whether that's him failing to make an adjustment, him not wanting to, or him not knowing how to. But he has all the physical traits that you would want to see in a player. And it's unfortunate how he has been hurting the team as it is, especially at third. And since he has been so bad at third, Sam, Morel's value this year, according to Fangraphs, is 0.
Yep.
He is a 0-win player right now, literally 0.0. And 18 home runs. I get it. That looks good on the baseball card right now. But are these trends or some indicators of success actually going to prove to be true? Because you can even make a bad luck case with this dude.
Sure.
His batting average on balls in play.
You can make it as a case.
It's
you
only
can
like
make it as a
20
case with
points
me
higher.
too.
What?
You can make it as a case with me too.
It's only like 20 points higher than his real average.
Right.
That's almost unheard of.
Right.
And so that would indicate some bad luck. But to be 98 games in and have that, you start looking into it a little bit more. There would be some evidence maybe with that to say that a Morel surge might be in there. Like if he hits 5 homers in the Cubs' first 2 series out of the break type of thing. But I just don't know. And he's become a full-time designated hitter again, which at least in this last 11 games has actually helped the Cubs. And we can get to that in this segment as well. But it's all over the place with this guy. He truly is a puzzle piece.
Well, I think he's a firm part of the Cubs Enigma Club, along with Wisniewski, sometimes Suzuki. And, I'll say this about Morel. My concern about Morel in the future is, can he figure out a place to play? And he shouldn't have, and let me say this. He shouldn't be rewarded with second base because that's his best position and the Cubs trade Nico Horner for Morel. He hasn't shown that he's a good enough offensive player
I agree.
to warrant that. So I haven't given up on the bat yet. I think my point, this conversation for me is not about 25 and beyond. It's about that. Okay, we're sitting at the All-Star break. It's time to reflect. Why are the Cubs 4 games under? And there's a lot of reasons why, and Christopher Morel is one of them right now.
Yeah, you're not going to move Horner a second time. He's already moved once. Ian Happ is a left fielder in left. Seiya Suzuki is a left fielder in right. We know Morel can't play center. Bush has been good at first, so there's no place to put him. And during this current 8-3 stretch since July 4th, Morel has started at third one time, and it was when Shota pitched, who was a known fly ball pitcher. Mastro really has been solid against righties, Sam. And, I hope Sunday could be the start of a turnaround for Morel. Then the Cubs offense will be even more potent. But I think Mastro's pretty much the everyday guy at third. And that's wild to say right now.
Against righties and Bodie lefties, for sure.
Yeah.
And Morel's back to being a DH. We'll see what happens when Tauchman comes back or Bellinger. Right now, they can afford to do that because Bellinger and Tauchman are out. So they have three guys to play outfield. So you know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. Maybe if Morel doesn't turn around, he might start to lose at bats as well.
Wow. So he would actually become, in essence, a part-time player at that point. And Tauchman might be back as soon as Friday. So that can get really interesting in a hurry.
And I think with Morel, that's one of the things that people don't realize as much. Do you know how many games? I'm pulling it up right now, just so I'm not making it up. But do you want to take a guess how many games he played in last year total?
Last year?
Yeah.
A lot. I'm going to say 132.
Incorrect. He only played in 96 games last year.
Wow.
The year before that, 107. The year before that, 113. So Christopher Morel has never been asked to be an everyday player until this year. And that really changes things. And, he might be one of those guys that's just better off playing 3-4 times a week. And you put him in based on matchup and things like that. Like that was another thing with Morel that concerned me heading into the year is he's never been asked to play 140 baseball games.
Well, with Tauchman and Bellinger available, then I definitely think that happens.
Right. And it's just like, it's just different. It's a lot easier. Joe Madden used to always talk about that. Hey, why doesn't so-and-so play more? He's hitting well right now, guys, because he's playing in spots that work out for him. It's different when you ask him to play every day. It's just different. It's being a really good everyday major league player is one of the hardest things to do in the world.
Mastro hitting, so a couple other notes here, by the way, over at the hot corner and such. Mastro hitting 286 during this 8-3 stretch. David Bodie and Patrick Wisdom each have only 10 plate appearances in this stretch, but Bodie has played in 8 games to Wisdom's 3 because Bodie he's a closer at third. He finished all those games at third. Did you know Bodie's hitting 353?
He's been really good.
Albeit in 34 at-bats since he was called up. But
he looks good.
That's great.
Looks good.
He takes the ball to what part of the field?
Whatever rhymes with opposite.
Opposite field.
Yeah.
It's like he's just a pro.
It's amazing what happens when you go to right field. You know who else was really good going to right field? Derek Jeter.
Wisdom has not made a start at a defensive position since June 21st.
I like that.
And I didn't realize this till doing some homework today. In 92 at-bats this year, he's only hitting 196 with 4 homers.
I realize it.
He might not be long for this club.
And most of his ABs come against lefties.
No, but seriously, if Tauchman's ready on Friday, Wisdom goes down.
He has to.
Well,
no, it'd be Canario.
Oh, that's right.
It'd be Canario, and then the next guy, and then Bellinger coming back would be Wisdom.
I see.
Yeah, fantastic. And by the way, who says that Canario shouldn't get Wisdom's role?
Right, which is so limited right now, anyways. But yeah, why not?
Right. It's just a long segment.
Coming up next, the Cubs still might trade for a catcher, despite getting a new one only recently. Stay tuned.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But the NBA playoffs are gone. The NHL playoffs are gone. And then for me, a real hard hitter, the Euros and Copa America are now over. Congratulations to Argentina. It's a 3-peat.
Wow.
The sports aren't sportsing like I want them to anymore. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. I probably will end up making a home run derby bet tonight.
Really?
And because what else is there to do? My dad's coming over to help me, so he wants me to help him with his iPass account. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. A daily boost. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to fanduel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. We're almost in August, folks. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
There is momentum happening here.
This episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. Pick more or less and 2 or more player stats, and then watch the winnings roll in. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond around baseball and your Prize Picks entries, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs. Take your pick of more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry. Prize Picks is really simple to play, with your entries taking less than 60 seconds to submit, turning $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps of your screen. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's a first deposit match up to $100 by using code LOCKEDONMLB. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. We're back here on Locked On Cubs, and this segment is discussing if the Cubs still want to trade for a catcher. I say still because a few weeks ago, they already made a move. They released Yan Gomes. They signed Tomas Nido, who was hitting 192 with the Cubs, but has graded out well defensively so far. Miguel Amaya, meanwhile, is still mediocre on defense, as we have all seen, but is 5 for his last 12. Maybe that's something there. Remember, Amaya cannot be sent to AAA without his permission. He is out of options after being placed on the 40-man roster way back in November of 2019 when he was first eligible for the Rule 5 draft. So the Cubs have 2 catchers. They seem to be going nowhere, although we could talk maybe about the Nido part of it in a minute. Bob Nightingale reported Sunday the Cubs have expressed interest in Blue Jays catcher Danny Jansen, who is a rental player, and the Blue Jays have completely nosedived in the standings. Last week, John Heyman reported the Cubs' continued interest in Rockies catcher Elias Diaz, who was first connected to the Cubs way back in May. So Diaz hitting much better than Jansen, Sam. Actually, Diaz is a career year offensively, grades out really well defensively. Jansen has struggled mightily at the plate recently and is also similar metrics and thrown out the same number of guys as Amaya, which is just a handful this year. This surprised me. I didn't think the Cubs were still looking for a catcher.
Yeah, me too. Amaya had a really nice couple of days, and actually Nido, I think back-to-back days they homered.
Yeah.
If Amaya could just get to the level offensively where he's just not an automatic out, I think it's probably decent enough. But I think it's so interesting, right? It's this double-edged sword of buying and selling. If the Cubs can win 4 of 6 or 5 of 6 to start the break, and they want to DFA Nido and then trade you're not
right.
it's not gonna cost a lot for these guys because the rental players, as you mentioned, then all right, let's go for it, let's get better. But do you want to make that move before? If you make it before, you give yourself a better chance to win 4 or 5 out of 6. But you know what I mean? It's that cat and mouse of this situation. I mean, I also would argue I'm a little bit upset because if the Cubs wanted a catcher that was better than this, why didn't they go do this earlier?
Like in May.
Yeah, because okay, I understand the Jansen thing because Toronto wasn't selling, but how about Colorado? I mean, they've been selling since before the season started.
Well, they have 2 rentals. You could also bring up Jacob Stallings. They could. These guys wouldn't cost much.
They could have done this earlier, and that's where I agree with Kaplan, and I disagree with Jed, where it's like no trades happen. So you pay 120 cents on the dollar for a guy like Diaz. Who cares? What's that going to cost you? If
right,
you really
because
were
he
serious.
would be a big improvement at that position. He would.
Let's just put it like this. If you make that deal, forget May. Let's say you make the deal June 8th. You might have 1 more win, 2 more wins, maybe
right.
1. Even if you had 1 more win right now.
Just 1, yeah.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, Jansen, to my surprise, doesn't excite me as much as I thought.
Well, I had no idea he was hitting that badly.
Right. But some other players on the Blue Jays excite me. But I don't think Ross Atkins would do it from his perch as president of that team. I guess my question is, like, who's the starting catcher in 2025?
It's a great question.
That's the bigger problem.
Yeah, right. And right now the answer is Miguel Amaya.
Right.
It's not Tomas Nido.
No. Is it Ballesteros?
Well, as Michael Cerami said when he was on, the Ballesteros thing is probably maybe the most exciting thing happening in the org, because the guy has an unbelievable hit tool, and it just, you can't mess around with the catcher position at this level.
No.
And so until he's fully there, even if he is a half DH, half catcher with his bat, I mean, the kid's only 20. But I don't think it's him at the catcher position quite yet. No.
And there's room this week to talk trades. Again, the Cubs are in such a weird spot right now. I would love to give you a list of relief targets, but folks, I did that in December.
No, we're not there yet.
I did that in December, and Jed, he did do something. He signed Neris, but yeah, we're just not there yet.
I'll tell you this. You and I will be in Michigan this weekend for a wedding.
All right.
We come back. We win that series. We beat Milwaukee 2 out of 3. That episode, you can give me a relief list.
Okay, because that would be
4 out of 6.
4 out of 6. Yeah.
Yeah. Get back within 2 of 500. Let's do a relief list.
Sounds good. And we'll be doing more of the standings and second half stuff later this week too. Because as of right now, what number of wins do you think gets the third spot? Is it 84? Is it 84 again?
So for the Chicago Cubs,
because then the Cubs have to go 37-27 the rest of the way.
Well, which actually doesn't sound that daunting, but
it's not.
But let me tell you this: for the Cubs, whatever win it is, it's one more because they don't have the tiebreaker with anyone.
Oh, so it's 85.
So I would say I think it's. I like the Padres. I don't understand.
Yeah, they could hit.
Like they could get to 88 wins. I think it's 85, 86 is what it's going to take.
Okay. Thanks.
I think if you want to ask me, I think 39, 40 more wins.
Yeah, and that's a healthy number.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, but the Cubs' schedule is also very easy.
They did it to themselves
down the stretch, except when they have to go to Shabazz Ravine in September.
Oh, interesting.
Outside of that, it's not that bad.
It eases up in September outside of 3 games.
Oh, in August too. We'll talk about that. No,
we'll do that then later.
They have one of the easier remaining schedules record-wise in all the land.
Well, that's good.
Is it?
Yeah. Coming up next,
go Cubs.
The Cubs' first round pick. MLB Draft started Sunday. We'll tell you who it is. We're brought to you by Booking.com. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Sam, do you know if the Cubs are still have a trip to Pittsburgh this season? That would be a great spot for folks.
They absolutely do. It's mid-August.
That's a fantastic stadium. I've been there multiple times. That'd be a great trip to book. And you can do that with Booking.com. You can book today on Booking.com on the website or in the app. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. With the 14th overall pick in the MLB Draft on Sunday, the Cubs selected Florida State third baseman Cam Smith.
Yeah.
Smith slashed 387, 488, 654 with 16 homers this season.
Oh.
And the prospect people have said that he had a breakout season this year, including dropping his strikeout rate, Sam, from 28.7 in 2023 to 14.9 this spring. 10 rounds are in the books with the draft right now. Final 10 rounds will be on Tuesday. The Cubs did not draft a pitcher until the 6th round and have taken 8 position players out of their 10 selections so far. And that's been your draft report.
Did you see my batting stance?
Nice.
I like this kid.
Wow. Toolsy.
Toolsy, he's a big kid. So I don't know if he'll be able to stick at third base. But you're not drafting that. You're drafting I'm sure they wanted the best bat available, and they probably feel like they got him. I can't really speak on it more than that. But I like the kid. I like the bat potential. I mean, one thing about Jed Hoyer, there's 2 things about Jed Hoyer that he's really good at. He's really good at making trades for the most part. He has his bad ones, but he's pretty good overall. And his first round pick history is pretty good. I mean, Wicks, I really like. Hopefully he can get healthy. Matt Shaw has just soared up the rankings. I think I'm missing one in there as well. But Jed Hoyer could draft a little bit, and he could trade a little bit. So I'm excited about this, and Cubs need bats, man.
Well, one of those trades he made, I'd like to further discuss this week. Michael Busch, and how he's had a nice campaign. We're going to get to All-Star Home Run Derby memories this week. Where are the Cubs at in terms of win-loss to begin the second half with other teams for the third wild card? What do they need to do coming out of the break and things like that? The Marquee deal is supposed to expire in September. That's a huge story. We're going to poke around this week as well.
Forgot about Kate Horton, by the way. It's kind of embarrassing.
So they've gone the last 3 drafts, Wicks to Horton to Shaw.
Yep, now Smith.
So
I'd say you feel pretty good about all those picks right now.
Yes, and hopefully we see Kate Horton throw a baseball sometime later this month. Thank you so much for checking out this edition of Locked On Cubs. You give us 20 to 30 minutes. We'll give you all things Cubs with a laugh or 2 along the way. Be sure to hit subscribe on YouTube, smash the like button for the algorithm, and leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcast. For Sam Olber, I'm Matt Cozy. This is Locked On Cubs.